In this episode of the Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast, hosts Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman from Transform CX discuss the critical state of employee engagement as we approach 2025. They begin by addressing a concerning incident at Wells Fargo, where an employee's tragic fate underscores the severe consequences of neglecting workplace engagement and well-being. Tim and Andreas also explore startling findings from Gallup, which show that only 20% of employees are truly engaged at work. Throughout the episode, they critique the ineffective methods companies often use to measure engagement and advocate for a shift towards more human-centric management practices that prioritize meaningful interactions and proactive leadership. Listen in to know more.
Hi, this is Tim Keefe with Transform CX and my co-conspirator, Andreas Wieman, and we want to welcome you all back to a Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast, also known as SDSS. Really excited again to spend some time with you and with Andreas, and let's talk about what are we going to be talking about today, Andreas?
Yeah, as you know, we released some save the dates for our Employee Experience 2025 that's coming up September 19th. And I think just driving conversation and centricity around employee experience and how it's evolved over the past couple of years and kind of where the current state is, it's really important because it impacts businesses and impacts people's lives and impacts economies. And it has such a huge ripple effect that goes on and on and on. And somehow, and I'm trying not to be my normal profane self here, but somehow people aren't like realizing it. They continue to do stupid stuff around employee experience. So I think that's a good topic for us to discuss.
Yeah. And you know, I keep leading with this number that came out from Gallup earlier in the year that on average, only 20% of employees, supervisory or not, are engaged in their job. It's just terrifying, right? From my standpoint, you think if you have 100 employees in the building, 20% of them are actually engaged in doing their work. The rest are trying to find the bare minimum to skate by while they look for another job.
Yep.
Or just, lifetime employment. What's the bare minimum that I need to do to stay in this job?
Well, and you get the associated productivity, back when that is actually genuinely felt by the employee. But here's the thing: companies aren't. I'm gonna try not to be too facetious here. Companies don't measure that correctly, and they definitely do not do it with data. They do it with gut feeling and a subjective observation.
Well, right, and they leave it up to the first and ultimately the first and second level supervisor to sort all this stuff out. And yet, what have they really done to equip those people to do the most important job, which is not generating reports, but should be, engaging with their subordinates to make sure what do they need to be successful in their jobs.
Well, the good news though, Tim, is that those guys, those frontline supervisors that are tasked with probably the make or break of the business in that role, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing really well right now. They're not stressed out. They have no anxiety, no loneliness. They don't have none of that whatsoever.
Oh yeah, as if. I mean. Yeah, well, so I wanted to lead in with an article that came out this week, a lot of reporting out of Phoenix. I think it's WTVA, ABC affiliate down there is one of the articles that I've seen on this. And without knowing any of the underlying details, but the kind of terrifying thing is there was in the report an employee at Wells Fargo was in the office this week and had checked in and was found at her desk 4 days later, having passed away. And having been passed for, they say, at least 3 days. And you just kind of sit there and think, this is an individual who checked in, they swiped in, and either nobody checked on the individual, whether they checked by walking by. There must have been a reason why they had her come into the office, I would think. But, and that should have been some type of, we keep talking about why do you go in the office? It's really about interaction with your coworkers. So here she is in the office. Is she engaging with anybody else, or is she such an individual contributor that her work is just kind of in isolation? Even still.
well, yeah, but there's so many red flags that should have come up from a security standpoint. Oh, we have an employee who badged in and never badged out. Okay, are
Right.
they like legit? I'm being kind of serious now. I'm being
No,
tongue in
no,
cheek, but I'm also
I
being serious. How many employees during 2008, 2009, during that, wonderful time period for a lot of people, how many of them were living in their fucking office?
yeah.
Sorry, Spotify. I didn't mean to F-bomb it there. But how many people are like living in their office? How do we not have control? It's 2024. How do we not have a control that says, hey, Tim, you badged in, you never badged out. 24 hours has elapsed and you have not badged out. Did you piggyback and walk out and forget to badge or something? There should be some. This is where automation should be focused on, is automating reports like this. Where
Well,
we shouldn't be automating it is where it's going to remove the actual genuine human interaction that should be occurring, so we can prevent people from dying at their desk and staying there for 4 days until anybody realizes it.
it's just nothing funny about it, other than just kind of the sheer terror of it. But you're right, and you know, think about all of us and we work in a virtual environment, you and I, and I mean, sometimes I think the people that work for me are like, why do you just like send me, I won't say random, but when I start my day or I expect they've started their day, I'll send a good morning or how are things going or whatever. And really, there's multiple reasons for that. One, I do care how they're doing. And, it's just nice to get up in the morning and say good morning to people. But I'm also, there's also that kind of a little bit of a check-in, which is, if you're doing okay, that's great. And if I don't get a response, I'll ping them again, assuming they're busy. And if we still have a problem, and we've done this. I mean, I remember a couple of times with offshore staff that we couldn't get a response from. We had somebody get in the car and go and check in on them. In both cases, fortunately, it wasn't anything as catastrophic as this, but it was something that we didn't have visibility to, and they weren't in a position to inform us. Right. So anyway, the point being, if you're going to say as a company, whether it's return to office, hybrid, work from home, you've got to be engaged. And so to your point, what does engaged mean? I mean, there's all these tools that companies are deploying that making sure that, people are moving their mouse and using their keyboard, or even worse, they have sensors at the desk in the office to check to make sure, somebody's been sitting there for how long, for how many hours. And yet none of that by itself translates into an employee who's doing their job effectively, and more than effectively, doing it in a way that delivers an exceptional product and service to the customers of that organization,
is
whether
a volunteered
not-for-profit or profit.
Yeah, no, agree. Whether it's a volunteered effort, a lot of the people now are like, they're settling. And I'm telling you right now, if you're measuring it the right way, you can measure the productivity and the contribution objectively when someone is settling and the effort you're getting out of them. And I love the analogy that you use around just being, if you're a factory owner, right? We'll go back to the 30s, I guess, 40s. Factory owner, and you're producing widgets. And if your output, decreases, you immediately can go down there and address it, and you're not going to settle for it. And now what we're seeing is, one, you're not even measuring what the output is accurately or at all. Let me just say it like that. And then what you're doing is you're assuming if there's any number that doesn't look good on a ledger or wherever, oh, it's the employee's fault. So let's go install this software. Let's go pay for this software, which is not cheap, by the way. And let's put it on all these desks. And then that way, all the employees know that we're watching them, and they better mind their P's and Q's. And the employees are like, look, I'm busting my butt here. How about you give me, some extra coffee, and I don't know, not a company branded logo all up in my face, but something I actually genuinely care about. And maybe you'll get more of a volunteered effort that's measurably higher than the I'm settling because I got bills to pay level of effort you're getting right now in mass.
Well, and I would argue that a lot of this, settling or quiet quitting, whichever term you want to use, it's not just a first level employee problem. You and I've worked with people at the director and VP level who are fundamentally retired in place, and people would argue, wow, they're getting all that money. How can they be like that? And I said, well, I'll tell you how they can be like that. They're not inspired. They're not, they work with people that they don't respect or aren't mutually respected. And it bleeds across the organization. The other thing that I think is really kind of fascinating is, and this is a downside of the return to office thing. I mean, I think we've all heard this, which is, they leave it up to the manager to determine who comes in and who doesn't come in. And then unfortunately, you get sometimes unaware or biases and favoritism and that come with that. And again, the supervisors or managers aren't supported in having their own tools so that they can say, oh, am I looking at people based on their real quantitative and measurable output, or am I measuring people and reacting to people strictly on my gut and how I like them? And then suddenly, you have all the biases, that inherent biases that come with that. So anyway, I just think,
like humans, that's the thing. We're all humans. It doesn't matter. Even if you're at an executive level and you're responsible for literally tens of thousands of employees, not like I have any experience in doing that, but if you have that level of responsibility, you have to feel you have that level of responsibility. And that's what makes you think, okay, well, let me talk to this group in this location that supports this, customer type or this internal function or something like that. And you compartmentalize it so it's personalized to them. And then that way, guess what? I don't want to make light of this situation because I'm very, if you guys can't tell on the other podcast, if you're listening to this one, I'm a little upset. I'm a little pissed off about it, frankly, that something like this could happen and nobody fucking notices. Like it's so infuriating.
Not so much for Spotify this month. I don't disagree with you. And I mean, I just think about the other side of that, right? Like if it had been, I have a good friend at Citibank. He has to swipe in 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And God forbid he doesn't swipe in. Here on the other side, we'd be all over him and he's a pretty senior guy. Right. And then you turn it around, and then here's this individual who comes into the office, does what she's expected of her, and what happened, right? Like literally nobody cared. And that to me is just terrifying. And you could argue, and I bet, and I'm not going to blame anybody because I don't know, but I'll argue that the individual that's directly responsible for her probably is overwhelmed themselves. Yep. And is being asked to do more administrative tasks rather than just checking in with your staff, seeing if they have what they need to be successful. So
agreed. And like here's what I think. Even if you go back to, I don't know, Tim, maybe like a year ago, listen to one of our podcasts from a year ago. We're talking about this subject. And the reason why we're so passionate is because we see and we interact with people that are impacted by poor employee experience. That's why we start there. Like, look, we have a whole bunch of experience on optimization and leveraging technology the right way, but you got to start with the humans that run the business and make the decisions that the AI can. And that starts with your employees.
It does. And it's interesting because, we're seeing some of these big companies, I won't mention by name, but large, casual coffee company, and their numbers are down significantly. In fact, they made a big deal about them bringing in a new CEO and got a 25% bump in their stock price. Yep. But the underlying thing is, okay, sales are down in the stores. Why? Well, one reason, people want to say is prices got really high, there's truth to that. And there's also, we have inflation, which makes things more expensive anyway. We have less money to buy things. But the other side, I believe, and it's seen some of the articles, that with all of that, the quality of the interaction with the staff has dropped dramatically. And in this particular brand, I would argue that was one of their things. I used to love some of their stores. Remember working in Brooklyn for a while, and this one barista was great. She'd see me in line and she'd be calling out, "Hey, you still want your usual?" And in a place where, there was 2 colleges at the same place. So you can imagine anytime there was coffee being served, there was 200 people in line. But there was that ability to touch that button on our forehead to make us feel special. And that, it on the service side is only driven by the employee's engagement. In my mind, you can make them read
100%.
whatever scripts you want. You can threaten them in whatever you want. And of course, now, in a global employment market where whether you like it or not, you are competing for staff with every other company in your industry in the world, because
Exactly.
it's not just the ones in your neighborhood anymore. And
Well,
so yeah, go ahead.
well, and it's a really good point. And that's where I think the view that decision makers and companies and leaders have to have is we've got to figure out how do we balance out the resilience and fortitude and innovation within companies, but you do that with your employees. It's not going to be because you know, go do listen to someone talk at a trade show or something like that. You can get a little bit of inspiration from there, but share that back with your team. But you've got to focus on that employee experience. The global economy that we're in right now, what you just said is absolutely true. You're going to have less disposable income. There's maybe one or two countries in the world that I've seen numbers on that. Maybe this isn't a true statement for. Majority of them, 100% true statement for. You're going to have less disposable income. So now you've got to earn where I spend my money, my hard-earned money that I have to save up that I have less of. So now that resistance factor, that decision-making factor in my mind is even, the bar is higher. How are we going to do that? Am I going to pay for this coffee you're talking about? Am I going to pay extra money and get bad service and go? No, I'm going to go get my Keurig and figure out how to make it at home, which is actually kind of what I've done. But it's the employee experience. And if you treat your employees the right way, and I'm not saying this at a 30,000 foot level that give them everything that they want, because trust me, I understand that P&L responsibility. I understand how all of the investment and the time and all of that balances out. It goes back to a connectedness on your P&L delivery and your projections, et cetera. But if you just step back, and focus on the employee experience and you're measuring things the right way, right, objectively, you can balance those things out and you'll actually see an increase in the productivity. You'll see an increase in sales in this coffee example because the employees are giving you that volunteered effort because they feel that this company actually cares about them.
Right. Right. No,
it's the experience difference that the customers are going to get.
It's really is fascinating, and it's leadership and culture at the micro level, not at the macro level, right? You can have all kinds of big campaigns about your culture as an organization, but it's what actually gets delivered in the moment, and at the front desk of a hotel, or in a food truck, or whatever, doctor's office. It doesn't matter. So, but these are, I think, again, I love this conversation. Terrible event in Phoenix. I'm sure we'll learn more about it, but on the covers, it just, sends a message of just, oh my God, talk about the ultimate in lack of engagement. Again, these are topics that we want to get into in depth on the 19th with our employee experience in 2025. Those of you who are listening, we'd love if you want to attend. The save the dates are out. We'll be sending out information on the panelists this coming week, and looking forward to it. Again, 90 minutes out of your time. We've got an incredible panel of super smart people. The moderator's he's kind of middle of the road, but we'll figure it out. We'll work around him. But
that's being gracious.
maybe lower than middle of the road. Anyway, love to have everybody there. Please like and subscribe if you have a moment. We think it's valuable. We see a little bit growing in our listening base, and if you could be there on the 19th, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be good discussion, good idea sharing, and hopefully we'll have good enough discussion that presents some ideas to, be the catalyst or the spark for employee engagement for your own company, your own organization. And I don't know, Tim, should we give them some of the good news too on the attendees?
Sure, go for it.
All right. If you attend, we recently had our world famous Stop Doing Stupid, I always say the wrong one, Stop Doing Stupid Stuff trademark book is now in a Audible version that we will be giving to all of the attendees of Employee Experience 2025 and beyond on September 19th. So there's a lot of great material in the book, obviously, that you can act on regardless of your level or your experience. that I think will help. And everybody wanted the Audible version, so Tim and I are giving you an Audible version. So attend EX 2025, and we'll give you a copy and hopefully give you some more ideas and unlock some other ideas to help with employee experience and business optimization.
Sounds great. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again, Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman.
All right. Thanks, everybody.